Hello, it's Nancy, and my guest today did the thing most people only complain about. She got tired of walking into a sports bar, asking someone to please, for the love of everything holy, put the women's game on one of the 14 screens and being treated like she'd asked them to switch it to C-SPAN. So she stopped asking and she built a place where that fight simply does not exist. Jillian Hiscock is the founder and owner of a bar of their own in Minneapolis, the first sports bar in the Midwest dedicated entirely to women's sports. Every screen, every night, women's athletics as the main event. She's a 3-sport high school athlete who never really stopped playing, a season ticket holder for the Lynx and the Gophers, a community owner of Minnesota Aurora, and before any of this, someone who spent a career in higher ed and nonprofits helping students that the system tends to leave behind. She raised more than $200,000 from about 1,000 strangers before she owned a single bar stool. And she decided from day one that this bar would show women's sports and only women's sports, even though the safe money says men's sports pay the rent. People told her that was probably a bad business decision, but hey, don't tell Jillian what to do. She did it anyway. So if you've ever heard this show before, Don't Tell Me What to Do, all of that entire story is precisely the kind of thing. Jillian is precisely the kind of person that I always want to put a microphone in front of. So, Jillian, welcome to Don't Tell Me What to Do.
Thank you so much. If my mom could only hear me now, knowing that I'm on a podcast called Don't Tell Me What to Do, you know?
Yeah, if my mother weren't dead, I would dedicate it to her, but because that's pretty much why I do it. Like finally, right? Finally I can say it and it's legit. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. I know you're really busy. It's a busy season. The Lynx are winning. The winningest team continues to win. That's very
Yes.
exciting. Are you full every time there's a Lynx game? Are you just like packed with humans?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. It used to be that we were only packed during away games, and now there's just been so much more attention on the team that we are packed for home games, away games, day games, you name it. People are loving themselves some Lynx, which is great. They deserve it.
Yeah, it's such an exciting time for that team. And honestly, actually it's not the time that's exciting, it's the team that's exciting. And the team makes the time exciting. And I'm not, and you and I have talked about this. I was the one who was picked last for dodgeball. I was the one where people were like, I'll take the chair. Is the chair available? Because I will pick the chair before Lions. I did play basketball for many years because I was tall. And then when I finally got good, I picked musical theater instead. But I don't get it. And I do, because I go to Lynx games and you can't help but get caught up in the energy and the swell of, the excitement and so I'm a Lynx fan, but I'm married to a diehard, never miss. Yesterday we were on the road coming back from my father's funeral, and and on the way up we had a game that I had to find, and yesterday we were driving for that midday game on a Wednesday, and I had
Camp
to
game.
find that when internet was not happy, not available, not thrilling. But I totally get it. I totally get it. So you were volunteering at the 2022 Women's Final Four when you first heard about the Sports Bra, which is a bar out in Portland. That's my dog barking because we're nothing if not entirely professional here. So take me back to that moment. What actually clicked for you, and did you know right away that this was your thing you wanted to build, or did it take a while to know what you were going to do and admit to yourself it was you who had to do it?
Yeah. Yes. So I was working for the Final Four and I was coordinating all the volunteers. We had an incredible tournament. The team at Minnesota Sports and Events is just absolutely unbelievable. And I had just an incredible experience working for them. And we were literally at a debrief meeting, and somebody was like, "Did you guys hear about this thing that's happening out in Portland?" And I hadn't. And somebody told me, "Yeah, it's called the Sports Bra. They're just going to show women's sports." And I was like, "What?" So I immediately started following them on social media and became very quickly obsessed with them and what they were doing. At this point, had absolutely zero interest in being the person to do it in Minneapolis. I really just really, really, really wanted one to open here so I could be a fan, because I worked in the restaurant industry in the late 90s, briefly. I have never owned a restaurant. I had a consulting business for a brief moment in my life, but other than that, have never owned a business. And so really, in a lot of ways, had no business owning a bar. But it was, probably 6 months had passed, and hadn't really heard anything here in the Twin Cities yet. And I just kept thinking, between how food restaurant heavy Minneapolis is and how successful our women's sports teams are, somebody is going to do this. Like, somebody with far more experience, with far more business doing this is going to do it. And after about 6 months, like, nobody had done it. So then I couldn't get it out of my head. And I kept kind of socializing it with friends and being like, man, if we did it here, what would we call it? Where would we want it to be? Are there teams we could work with? Like, what local athletes could we hang out with? And all these kinds of things. And it was still just kind of a pipe dream that I was kind of just playing around with. I was working for myself at the time. And so, I was plenty busy doing lots of other things. But then I cold emailed Jenny Wynn, who's the founder of the Sports Bra, in May of 2023. And I basically said, like, I need you to talk me out of this, because this sounds crazy. And she was a chef, like, that was her training. And so she had come up in the restaurant industry, knew the restaurant industry, everything. And my very first question to her was, are you franchising? And she was like, maybe someday, but definitely not anytime soon. And then my second thing was, well, that I think I need you to talk me out of this, because I think I'm going to do it. And needless to say, we talked for about 30 minutes, and I hung up the phone. I walked upstairs to my wife, and I was like, I think we're going to open a bar. She was like, okay. So yeah, I mean, I think it was, like you mentioned, I think it was just the perfect storm of a lot of different things, that feeling like my fandom never mattered to any of the traditional sports bars, places that we call men's sports bars. I like you, was actually also I was a music major. Like, I was a music nerd, but I was always an athlete, and was just tired of, like, particularly Minnesota, right? Our winningest teams are our women's teams. And the lack of respect that I felt like they received from so many different facets of our community was just frustrating to me. And so, in a classic "don't tell me what to do" fashion, I decided, maybe is the time to try to do this. And so, yeah, the jump I officially made the decision in May. I wrapped up all my clients that I was working with and started working full-time on it in July of 2023. And then we opened a short 9 months later.
Wow. So, as somebody who is also an entrepreneur, that story you just told makes it sound like, oh, that sounds easy. And right. So, and I think that that's how people receive a lot of those stories. And then they do it and they're like, what the hell am I doing wrong? So where did you fall down? Where did you fall on your face? Like, in those 9 months, where'd you think this isn't going to happen? Or what the hell am I thinking? Or I'm getting a divorce, or, whatever it is.
Yes. Shout out to the wives in the world. My wife is absolutely the best. No, I mean, I think absolutely. I think one of the things that I'm very aware of, and I often say is my superpower, is that I'm very aware of what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. Like, I have self-awareness to a T. And so I knew when I first started that I was getting into a thing I didn't know anything about. And so what I started doing was literally making a list of questions of every single thing I could think of. I mean, everything from, how do I get food into my restaurant? Like, I didn't know what food distributors were. I didn't know that there were, like, I literally knew nothing. Like, it's kind of embarrassing how little I knew. And I knew what I felt really strong in, right? Like, I felt very strong in my community. I felt very strong in the connections that I had built throughout my professional career and my personal life. I felt very strongly that I wasn't the only fan that felt like this. Like, I knew enough from being a Lynx season ticket holder for years and just in this space. But really, I think the biggest thing was just figuring out who could help me answer the questions that I needed answered in order to make
Mhm.
this happen, and who could help me figure out what questions I didn't even know I didn't know, which
Mhm.
was so much of it. I think the first big fall on the face was financing, which isn't super surprising to anyone that's tried to open a business before, especially one that requires financing. That was, I could not have prepped any more for my meeting with the bank on terms of my business plan, our presentation, every single thing that I could possibly do. I'm a perfectionist in that regard. And was told flat out, it's not a proven business concept. You have no experience running a restaurant. Good luck, basically. And that was kind of the first moment where I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be a lot
Yeah.
harder than I had initially thought. We were really, really fortunate to be able to turn to our community and through our crowdfunding campaign to help cover a gap that we weren't going to receive in financing
Mhm.
from the SBA. But I think that was kind of the first moment for me that I was like, this is going to take a lot more community engagement and on the front end than I had anticipated. And then from there, I feel like I fall on my face about 3 times a week, sometimes three
Yeah.
times a day. I think that's the other piece that being an athlete really helps in being a business owner is that like you basically fail all the time in sports. Like that's very few people win all the time. And so I think sports has really taught me to build up resilience and to build up problem solving and to, be a brain of a goldfish and keep moving on. And I think that's really what I've leaned on a lot in the last 2.5 years is just figuring out like, okay, so that didn't work. Now what? And not
Mhm.
trying to hold on to too many things for too long.
I love that. Did you find a bank that you have a relationship with now? Because I think most people don't even know that your banking relationship might be the most important relationship you develop as a new business, as a founder. Did you end up finding that person, and do you have that kind of relationship?
Interestingly enough, no.
Ah,
I was fortunate enough in that I was able to build a relationship with a local nonprofit called the Neighborhood Development Center, which is
oh
right
yeah.
here in my backyard. So my wife and I live in Frogtown in St. Paul. And I literally go to the coffee shop in the main floor of the building all the time, Flava Cafe, shout out to Shawnee. But I never knew what they did. And then
Oh,
somebody was like, oh, you should reach out to NDC. Like they help businesses get started. And so I was able to work with NDC and I went through kind of a business plan writing course with them and then was
wow.
able to receive some financing support from Neighborhood Development Center to close our final gap in order for us to be able to open. I still bank with the bank that denied me my loan, and it's actually become a little bit of a joke because they got acquired by another company that got acquired by another company in the name of banks. But I do often go back in and say, "Hey, that business concept that isn't proven's got another big deposit here this week. Can you take care of that for me?" So yeah, it's a challenge. It's a struggle for sure.
Wow.
Um, but it was something that, I learned a lot from, and have kind of been able to kind of keep moving on past it because it wasn't going to stop me. I mean, I knew it wasn't going to
Hmm.
stop me.
I love that. Who told you not to do it? Who showed up out of the woodwork that was surprising? Like your bank, they tell you not to do it by denying your financing, but who showed up trying to tell you what to do?
Very few people in person, which I'm sure surprises no one. It was mainly
Mhm.
all the trolls on the internet, right? It was mainly a lot of people saying, women don't even watch women's sports. So how are you going to ever get a bar to fill with women's sports fans? Nobody watches women's sports. It a lot of times gears into transphobic and homophobic things in terms
Sure.
of, well, now that they're letting men play women's sports, anybody can, just like all this just chatter
Mhm.
that I've gotten really good at tuning out. That's taken some skill and some practice of building my resilience and responding to the online trolls. But I think more than anything, in person, face to face, a lot of times it's more of just like you can tell the people. Even now, like literally, I just met somebody there, and they're like, "Huh." But like, who shows up? And I was
Mm-mm.
like,
Everybody.
literally everybody, men,
Yeah.
women, families, children, old lesbians, straight white men, like literally everyone. And so I think more than anything, no one was ever like straight up rude to my face. They were more like, like in a Minnesota, that's interesting way.
Mm-hmm.
And I just take, I take a lot of pride in what we've built and proving a lot of those people wrong. I think that there's a certain amount of motivation that comes from proving folks wrong in terms of them not believing that your dreams are going to come true. But it is hard. Every day is a challenge, right? We're constantly fighting for repeat customers. We're constantly fighting for improvements on our daily operations. There's not, even though we've achieved success, there's certainly still no letting go or letting down of the work. If anything, I would say it gets harder because you want to continue to maintain the things that people have experienced.
Yeah, so I came up, my youth was spent in food service, right? And I have slung more hash than most people would willingly admit. I've bartended, I've been a bar back, I've waited tables, I've trained the trainers, and food service put me through college. And I've written articles about everything I learned as a food server or a bartender that played into my role as an entrepreneur or a leader. And but I will say that when people say to me now, like I have a dear friend and we have this fantasy of opening like a lesbian speakeasy, like a queer speakeasy, something really quiet, dark, where people
closes at 8 p.m.
Yeah, exactly. Where we can be in bed by 9, like respectable middle-aged lesbians. But every time I think about it, I think, oh my God, it's so hard. I can't do that again. And so my question for you is, are you always tired?
Yes.
Because I don't think the world realizes how hard that work is. It is so hard on your knees, on your back, on your schedule, on your sleep, on your mental health, because people are hard.
During perimenopause, like, come on, like, let's add this into the mix.
Seriously.
Right?
So,
yes, it is a very common thing for me to feel very, very tired. I do think that I, and my wife in particular, has been very good at like forcing me at certain points to be like, nope, no, that's not happening today. Those emails, those, fill in the blanks, like that's not happening today. You are sleeping on the couch all day long, or we are going and laying in the lake somewhere for the entire day. Because I certainly have experienced work burnout in a very, very serious way in past lives, and don't want to get to that point, and know kind of the warning signs of getting to that point for myself. So, but it is exhausting. And I think that, in terms of what people don't always realize, like the one thing that I always crack up about is like people assume that I like live at the bar, that I am like, like I'll get a random text message at like 2:00 on a Saturday and they're like, we're here and you're not. And I'm like, yep,
it's Saturday.
I have staff. They're great. They work. Because in reality, I actually work very few shifts at the bar, because I have an incredible staff that loves working and wants to make money, and I want to help keep them happy and gainfully employed. And so I want them to work and make money. And so I'm not actually there a lot, but it's all the behind the scenes stuff that actually takes me out the most. And it's, I was having dinner with 2 other women business owners this last weekend, and we were just talking about the decision fatigue of like just coming home at the end of the day and just literally being like, I made 1,700 decisions today. And now when my wife asks me what I want to eat, I'm literally like, whatever you put in front of me is going to go in my mouth. Like I can't think about what I want to eat right now. I think that's for me the more mental exhaustion than it is necessarily the physical exhaustion on a day-to-day basis. It's just like constant decision making on everything from, are we going to feature something new on the menu next week, to who am I going to schedule, to what are we going to do if the garbage doesn't get picked up next week. It's just like every single decision is constant.
I get it. Plus, I think your role as the CEO, as the founder, as the owner is up and out, right? Your job as the face of the brand is to continue to raise awareness so that you can feed those people. But my question for you there is, I think a lot of owners or founders find it really difficult to step out of the business, to not be involved in the minutia every single day. And your business is still young enough where it's kind of a surprise that you have taken sort of that sort of point of view and been able to separate yourself and really trust the people that you work with. What gave you that? What allowed you to do that?
Yeah, I mean that's a great observation, and I would say yes. And I think that there's a lot of for me, trust in my staff is like the absolute number one most important thing that has made the business as successful as it has been. Is
Mm-hmm.
that I firmly believe we hired the right people for the right positions, and a lot of my experience working in higher education and nonprofits was in kind of team building, team dynamics, leadership
Mm-hmm.
development. And so I felt that's one of the things I felt very confident in, right? Was like how to build a
Mm-hmm.
team and get them to walk towards the same goal together. And so that I think is one of the things I'm most proud of in the entire business is that our staff, we have 17 employees and 14 of them have been with us since we opened 2.5 years ago.
Wow.
And I mean, in the service industry, that's insane and unheard
Mm-hmm.
of. But I take a lot of the same lessons that I learned in nonprofits and higher ed into the service industry, which was not a normal place for a lot of those things. Like pay your people well, treat them well, trust them, let them do their job, like stay
Mm-hmm.
out of their way. Like they don't need me in their business all the time. They're the service industry experts, not me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that from that day-to-day operations piece, I kind of took not a back seat, but I kind of took a engagement seat from the back to be like, you guys tell me what you think we need to do. Like, you're the
Mm.
experts. I'm the one that's like creating the space, and I'll take care of all the, big picture things. But I didn't know what steps of service were when I first opened this bar. Like, I'd never even heard of that phrase before. And, my managers are like, oh, we got to do, this, then this. And are we going to greet them with that? Are we going to greet with water? And I was like, I don't know. You guys figure it out. Like, what do you want to
Uh-huh.
do? And so I'm really, really, and always have been really big on delegation with my teams. And so I think that has really enabled me the time and space to be able to kind of do up and out in that same regard. And there's still just a lot of day-to-day minutia I have to be involved in. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have any salaried staff that are not working when they're not on the floor. And so when it comes to social media, payroll, scheduling, you name it, I'm doing all of that still. And I love it. Like, I love
Mm-hmm.
doing it. And it is certainly a way for me to stay connected in that kind of day-to-day operations without having to physically be there every single day.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, the leadership piece about it is just so much about, if you've put the right butts in the right seats and given them the right tools, like, get out of their way. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I hate micromanaging. I hate being micromanaged. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've just never been that way as a leader. And
Mm-hmm.
does that mean that everything's always butterflies and roses? Absolutely not. I literally just today was texting my cook and I was like, I'm so sick and tired of telling you guys that you have to do this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
stop.
Mm-hmm.
but like, I know that they trust me and they respect me enough to get that text and be like, yeah, we really screwed up. Got it. We'll fix it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll correct it. Like, I don't need to continue to harp on them. I need to do the disappointed mom text that I get them, drop into their text messages to say I'm disappointed, and they'll fix it because
Yeah.
they know, like, they know, they're smart, they're savvy, they're
Yeah.
experts. Like, just get out of their way and let them do their jobs.
Yeah, you and I are kindred, I can tell. Because like so much of what you're saying resonates so deeply with me. And I think the best entrepreneurs, the best leaders are the people who get, you surround yourself with better than you and you let go and let God, right? Like to hold on too tightly means you're never gonna evolve. You're never
Yep.
gonna grow either personally or whatever. So let me ask you this. This is a question that so many entrepreneurs either ignore or lie about. Are you making a living?
Yes and no. How about that for
Okay.
an answer? I won't lie
Mm-hmm.
about it. I'll tell you
Sure.
the whole truth. First of all, I'm very, very blessed that my wife is gainfully employed and has maintained her employment status through the duration of our bar. So that has been a nice safety net for us.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the other piece of it is, people ask all the time, like, what's your profit? Blah, 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 blah. And like, the restaurant industry is so psychotic that, like, nobody makes money in the restaurant
I know. God
industry.
bless. Mm-hmm.
Very, very, very few restaurateurs make money unless you're, some big restaurant group that's in a very different level than I am. We have been very, very lucky in terms of a lot of different things. The business space that we ended up in and what was provided when we moved in, meaning that we didn't have to have as many building expenses as a lot of restaurants have to have. We had a lot of early success. We've had really great sustaining success. And at the end of the day, I bought a building that was from 1901 and has just like a massive, massive amount of repairs that constantly need to be made on it. And I acquired a restaurant that had been the same restaurant since 1978 and had a lot of things that were just old and outdated and not repaired. And so could I have taken home a salary in the last 2.5 years? Absolutely. Have I taken home a large salary in the last 2.5 years? No, because we've invested a lot of everything back into the business, you know, making things better while we have more flush cash right now to be able to hopefully not have to have all of those expenses down the road when we become more of a mainstay community and community asset and aren't necessarily the, you know, hot new thing on the market every weekend. So we're definitely being strategic in terms of how we're spending our money. I think it always blows my mind how much people just assume that because they see a restaurant full, that the owner is like Scrooge McDuck in a pool of money somewhere. Like, I'm like, y'all have like zero idea of what the reality is behind the curtains when it comes to restaurants, because you know, on a great month, like March Madness, busiest month we have, you know, out of almost every 12 months out of the year, you know, we're lucky if we're taking home, you know, 10 grand at the end of the month.
Sure.
You know, I mean, because it's just, you know, food's expensive. Everything's going up. Again, we take care of our staff very well. So labor's like a huge expense. I mean, everything is just expensive. And so, you know, I get asked a lot to support and donate and sponsor all of these different types of activities and nonprofits and events. And I'd love to say yes to all of them. And the reality is, like, until I can more consistently pay myself, like I can't be just giving away my entire business every single month to different things, because it's no joke. I mean, it really is no joke.
I think that's true. I get that the restaurant industry has a particular set of challenges that are different from the rest. So I don't want to disavow that. But I think that the cultural conversation, the cultural understanding of business ownership is so far away from the reality of it. And if you are not a large enterprise business with serious funding behind you, it is never easy. I mean, you know, I've been a co-owner of Clockwork for coming on it's been 24 years. And I stepped away from the CEO role, and I will tell you, the thing I don't miss is the ebb and flow of stress from day to day. You know, I mean, and I don't think the world gets that. I think small business owners are the largest employers in the country. And I think we aren't given the kind of respect that, you know, sort of acknowledges that. But I also think people make up what that means, especially for the owners themselves. It's like, you know, my car is 10 years old and paid off. You know, I don't, you like, and it's all because you want to pay people fairly and create the jobs you wanted, right? Like,
that's exactly
the job you wanted, right? Yeah. And I totally get it. So, you know, one of the things you mentioned earlier is sort of the lack of respect for women's sports. And nowhere have I seen that more. So I mentioned earlier that my spouse is a diehard Lynx fan, a diehard sports fan. Like, she's ridiculous. Like, it doesn't matter. Whatever season it is, she's into it. And like recently, when there was like a gap and stuff that was going on, she turned on golf. I was like, now you're just trying to piss me off. Now I feel like you will pick anything except for like go on to dinner with me or something. Like, at this point. So she's a little on the nutty side, but good nutty. But one of the things that I struggle with is, so we have a place in Wisconsin, so we do not get season tickets to the Lynx, because unfortunately the Lynx happens in the summer, right? The bulk of their season is through the summer, and summer where we live, and I know you can relate, is like, we live for summer. Like, we are dormant, you know, for 5 or 6 months out of the year, and the 6 months that are summer into fall, like, do not mess, right? Don't mess with us. And so the commitment to the Lynx is something we haven't been able. Now, we go to games, individual games, when we're in town, but we watch them religiously because, as I mentioned, my spouse is a nutter. So here is my thing. My spouse is decidedly low tech, and all of this leads into a question for you that you will totally get, is decidedly low tech, cannot miss a game, morning, noon, or night, cannot miss a game. And I find myself trying to find these stupid ass games. Like, my thing is, what did women do that even, like, it is so decentralized and like, I got her the WNBA league pass on YouTube, thinking this is the answer. We have Victory Plus. We have um, cable TV still, for the love of God. We have Amazon Prime. We have the League Pass on Amazon Prime. And I still have days where I'm like, I don't know what to do. I can't find this game. And we come very near divorce, probably 3 times a week, trying to find these damn games. And so you've said that you, and this is a quote that I found in my research, in my stalking of you, that you need a master's degree in streaming services just to watch women's sports consistently, which I absolutely, I mean, I have nothing but sympathy, empathy, all the things. When did that everyday annoyance become part of your business plan? Like, and how do you address it? Like, and how should the rest of us address it? Like, I just want to find a place where I can watch the links, the end. And what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Is it always going to be this way?
It's honestly, it's such an interesting part of the conversation around women's sports, because there's so many things that are, again, kind of like those yes and moments. Because first of all, yes, I mean, it's insane. Imagine doing what you do for the links for literally 7, 8, 9, 10 different teams, leagues, etc.
No.
Again, did I mention my wife's a saint? She does our television schedule every week, so she's got that on lock.
You got a good one.
But I will even say, so when we first opened 2.5 years ago, we had, I think, probably about 12 different streaming services that we had to subscribe to, in addition to cable packages to have at a bar. So most sports bars will buy the largest cable package you can get that has, MLB Network, NFL Ticket, blah, 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 blah. We didn't need any of those because we don't show those games. But we bought like the second largest cable package. We had probably 15 to 16 streaming services that we had to use. And the thing that most people don't realize when it comes to streaming is that as an individual, when you, Nancy, buy Amazon Prime or Victory Plus or any of those different streaming services to watch the links, you check a little terms and conditions box that nobody reads. But in that terms and condition box, it almost always says, this is not intended for commercial use. This is for personal use only. And so here we come as a restaurant and a bar that wants to show these things in a decidedly commercial venue. And I was really committed, and Jenny from the Sports Bra really encouraged me to try and be as above ground as possible when it came to any of those types of legalities, because unfortunately there are so many people that want us to fail. There are so many people that are waiting for us to make a mistake that we can, that will be the end of our business. And so we spent almost 6 months in communication with virtually every single one of those streaming services: Fubi, Tubi, Netflix, HBO, League Pass, Prime. I mean, literally all of them, trying to get commercial privileges in order to stream their services in our bar. And the number of times I was given the response by people in this industry who work for League Pass would be like, but where are you going to show it? I was like, in a bar with people that are going to be buying food to watch your game. And they were like, really? Like, wow. I was so, that was another face plant moment where I was like, oh my gosh, if I have to explain women's sports fandom to the people working in the media industry, like, we got a long way to go. Now I am here 2.5 years later to tell you this might be hard to believe, but it has actually gotten easier. It may not seem like it, but it has gotten easier. More and more things are now on mainstream cable channels. I was just with the Minnesota Vixen head coach, and they're in the national championship game in 2 weeks, and their national championship game is going to be on ESPN2. And I was like, thank the Lord, it's not going to be on some random YouTube channel I got to go find somewhere. But the blessing and curse of where we're at with women's sports and media deals right now is that we're so far behind in the investment into women's sports that now we're playing catch up. And so we've
Mm-hmm.
had all of these different entities that have now come forward and said, oh yeah, we'll show women's sports. But now we have a 5-year deal that's already in place with this market. And
Mm-hmm.
now we're entering into a 3-year deal with this market that's now overlapping with the 5-year deal of this market. So that's how we've gotten to this piecemeal situation that we're in right now, where
Mm.
literally every day of the week, the WNBA is on a different channel. And it's a nightmare. They know it's a nightmare. League Pass is really great for very specific things and very terrible for most things
Mm-hmm.
outside of that. But I do think, even though it's painful right now, I do think it's a good sign of where we're going, in
Mm-hmm.
the sense that more and more of these major networks, ESPN now has women's sports Sunday night. So every Sunday night, they're featuring some different women's sports. And
Mm-hmm.
they got rid of Major League Baseball Sunday night to do that. So here's
Oh.
the largest sports network in the world
Mm-hmm.
that has been like, we're taking off Sunday nights from baseball and putting women's sports in that highlight. I think we're going to see more and more of that happening. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that we're kind of in this really awkward growing phase right now, where like
Mm-hmm.
everybody wants in, but they can't all play in the sandbox together. And so now we have all of these competing media deals that are making the fan experience really, really miserable.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also really, it's good to know that you have navigated through it. I know for me, when I can't find it on TV, I'm like, let's go to a bar of their own. Let's like
We
I
do
don't
hear
have to
people
tell
say
you.
that. We literally have people be like, I went on 3 channels and I couldn't find it,
Yeah.
so we just came here. I'm like,
Oh
great.
yeah. Yeah,
Glad you're here.
exactly. And I'm super grateful that you exist for that reason. I mean, listen, as I mentioned, not a sports person, love the links. And I'm certain that there are other things that my spouse could pressure me into liking. Just for the household harmony. So here's another area that I really admire you for, and I feel like we share a set of similar values around. You made it an actual rule that you will not partner with vendors or distributors who are racist, sexist, or homophobic, and you've been clear that your bar is a safe space for queer and trans people, which I love you for and have nothing but respect for, including trans athletes. That conversation is far louder than it needs to be right now. In this particular climate in 2026, that is not a neutral stance. And you know that. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. What do you think that position has cost you, and what has it given back?
Yeah, I think I think I was destined to own my own business in some capacity, because in every professional performance review I ever had in my 17 years working in professional employment and other spaces was that I needed to have better discernment. I needed to practice having a filter more. I needed to not be as transparent. That's just how I'm wired, is just to
Mm-hmm.
be very, I'm Minnesotan. I was born here, but people tell me all the time, like, you're the least Minnesotan I've ever met in my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm very much a straight talker. I don't shy away from hard conversations. I will tell you exactly what I'm feeling. And I don't know, like literally don't know how to separate my personal values and beliefs from the business that I'm operating. Like I just, I don't know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is something that, was it a very intentional decision for me to like become this like community beacon around trans athletes in sports? No, absolutely
Mm-hmm.
not. Am I that as an individual? Absolutely. And so now, does it make sense that a bar of their own has become like, this has become one of our main things that we deal with as an institution? Absolutely. It makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
because there are so few businesses that are willing to take those stands. And it's not just trans athletes, right? I mean, it's standing up against ICE. It's all the things that Minneapolis has been dealing with. I don't know how to separate my personal beliefs and values from the business that I operate in. And I think that my customers expect that of me. I think that my
Mm-hmm.
staff for sure expects that of me. And I think for me, what has it cost me? Oh, it's absolutely cost me guests and customers. Like, there's no question in that.
Mm-hmm.
I've had customers that have come into the bar, had a great experience, and then email me when they go home and say, I'll never return to your bar because I just saw this post where you were supporting men participating in women's sports. And I'm like, good on you. Good riddance. See
Mm-hmm.
you later. Like, I don't have interest in trying to have that conversation with people, especially when it comes from a place of hatred. Like, if it's genuine curiosity, like, let's
Mm-hmm.
go. Like, I am more than happy to engage in conversation with folks that are genuinely curious. But when it comes just from places of absolute hate and homophobic and transphobic ideologies, like, I just am not interested in doing that. I have
Mm-hmm.
too many people in my life that are impacted by these legislative decisions that are being made that I can't stand idly by. I would absolutely say it has brought us far more than it has taken away from us.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that more than ever during the ICE occupation in Minneapolis, quite frankly,
Mm-hmm.
when I was being told by all of these restaurant friends that I have in the industry that they couldn't make statements because they were part of a larger group and the larger group wasn't making statements, or the statement they made they didn't think was strong enough, or there's no statement being made and we can't do anything about it. And meanwhile, I was like, y'all, this is crazy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is absolutely insane. The last thing I care about right now is what women's sports are on TV and how I find them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't care at all right now about that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were very loud about our position and what we were going and not going to be doing when it came to the ICE occupation. And for lots of different reasons, many, many restaurants struggled mightily, not surprisingly, during that occupation. And a lot of it, like the most hard hit, obviously, were the immigrant owned businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But we, as a business with privilege, in the sense that I am not an immigrant owned, it's not an immigrant owned business. I carry a lot of privilege in my own regard. We were actually seeing really strong turnout from guests. But it wasn't because the links were on TV. It was because we were hosting poster making parties for the rally that was happening on Saturday. And we
Mm-hmm.
were doing donation drives for the mutual aid organization across the street. Like, we were getting, the community was showing up in this very different way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that I think the community has also come to kind of expect from us. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's that kind of brand loyalty that I want. That's the
Mm-hmm.
kind of brand loyalty I look for as a consumer. And so that's the kinds of things that we want to emulate as a business. And has our social media following dropped and gone up and dropped? Absolutely. Like, if I can go back and look at the post where we lost probably about 3,000 followers the day that we posted about Renee Good's murder, like, easily right off the bat. But to me, that's like, okay, then you're
Mm-hmm.
not the right people. Like, you're not our people.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know how to not do that and show up
Mm-hmm.
for the people that show up for us.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's hard, but I know that I am absolutely in a position that, because I own my own business, because I am my own boss, I can do those things. And there isn't somebody up here, which was always my thing in higher ed. Whoever's up here and making these decisions doesn't get it. Like, I am here, like, I am that person. And so I get to make those decisions that absolutely impact our business, but I would say overwhelmingly have positively impacted our business.
Mm-hmm. Well, I for one am grateful. I really appreciate how you show up in the world and the bravery that you demonstrate when you say the truth, when you say the thing. I've always been a believer that businesses have more power than we acknowledge, because people used to say to me all the time, "When are you going to run for office?" And I talked to a colleague of mine who was an attorney who worked for a policy organization about whether or not I should, and she said, you can actually do more as a private business owner. You can make more happen. You can raise more awareness than you can as a politician, because we basically eat our politicians alive. And that's why they end up leaning into sort of their single lane, and really not showing up for us. I mean, I think we can all agree that while we you know I think it's a thankless job, I also think they're failing in so many regards, because right now the reason that people
Yeah.
uh, get uncomfortable when you maybe talk about trans issues as a business owner is because we've politicized humans. We have
Right.
made people a political issue, and we
Right.
should not. The only thing we should care about when it comes to people is, how are we going to take care of each other? How are we
Right.
going to be decent to each other? And so I appreciate your willingness to use your voice. There are people who are going to tell you, though, that a bar should just be a bar and they should keep those politics out of it, right? So pour the drinks and shut it. when someone says that to your face, what do you say back?
Yeah, honestly, women's sports is inherently political. Like women couldn't
Mm-hmm.
compete in sports in without Title IX legislation. Like
Mm-hmm.
to separate women's sports from politics is literally not possible. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we are still, even with Title IX in our 50 years of Title IX, we are still seeing Title IX violations at some of your favorite, and well, maybe not your favorite, but at some of the largest sports teams and universities around the country are still seeing some of the largest perpetrators of Title IX violations.
Wow.
And so women's sports, I think as a whole is political, because we literally had to legislate in order to be able to participate. So that's the first thing. I
Mm-hmm.
think secondly, the thing that impacts us the most is that women's sports fans
Mm-hmm.
are also, there's so much interesting research that's been done and continues to be done around the women's sports fan and how different it is from men's sports fans.
Mm.
And not only what the fans expect, but what the athletes expect from their fans. And women's sports fans like, they love knowing the stories behind the athletes that they follow. They care deeply
Mm-hmm.
about who they are on and off the court. And so this shut up and dribble, mentality that was pretty prevalent in the NBA for a while, has never worked in women's
Mm-hmm.
sports. Like, it just hasn't. And the Minnesota Lynx have been such a great founding member, really, of using the athlete platform for social justice issues long before ICE, long before any of these things. I mean, this goes all the way back to Philando Castile being murdered in Minneapolis or in St. Paul. I mean, that was one of the first times that any professional sports team had stood up and said, like, no, like, we're not
Mm-hmm.
playing. Like, this isn't
Mm-hmm.
happening unless you acknowledge what is happening to the people in our community. And
Mm-hmm.
so women's sports have always taken the lead, I believe, in standing up for social justice issues and just human issues. Again, to your
Mm-hmm.
point, like, we're not talking about things that should be politicized.
Mm-hmm.
But when we are killing Black and brown boys on the street, like that, we are now politicizing this
Mm-hmm.
because you have made it political. And
Mm-hmm.
women's sports is so the same way. And I think so for fans that really feel drawn to athletes and the causes that they care about being carried forth by these athletes that have this positional power is another thing we think about as a business. Like, we have positional power, for lack of a better word, in this ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
And for us to show that same sort of passion and energy around trans athletes in sports, around equal pay for women athletes, around any of these things that impact athletes,
Mm-hmm.
is a part of building our fan base at the bar as well, because that's the kind of thing that women's sports fans expect from the athletes and teams that they follow. I
Mm-hmm.
always laugh when major political events happen, right? And ICE, just because it's the most recent one, all these fans just attacking different women's sports teams for not making political statements. And meanwhile, I'm like, has anyone talked to the, fill in the blank of the men's sports team? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why are you all mad at the Lynx? And meanwhile, these 17 men's sports organizations that have far more money and far more positional power are staying quiet, and y'all are just fine with them.
Mm-hmm.
So we've just demanded women take such more of a vocal presence in these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think it's one of the things that makes women's sports fans stand out so much more than men's sports, that has
Mm-hmm.
equated to more money, because women's sports fans spend more money. Women have the spending power in most families, whether they're same-sex families like mine or not same-sex families like mine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, women are driving these conversations in so many different ways that having their leadership and their voice around social issues makes sense. And
Mm-hmm.
allowing women athletes to use their platform to do that,
Mm-hmm.
is again, I think it just goes hand in hand. I don't know how you separate them out.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. I have one more question, then in the lightning round. Do you have a hard stop?
No, we're good.
Okay, I won't go very far over. I want to respect your time, but clearly I'm disrespecting it, and we're going about 5 minutes over. But that's not because of disrespect; it's because I love you, and these answers are fantastic.
We're
So
good.
you started a fund of their own to keep girls and women in sports, and you said flat out that girls who play become women who lead, which I love. And while I wasn't good at dodgeball, I managed anyway. So put on the futurist hat. You're a futurist right now. 5 years from now, the bar, the fund, the whole movement of women's sports bars popping up around the country. Where do you want all of it to be, and what has to change for that to actually happen?
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow, that's big. I I would say what we need more than anything is people to stop considering women's sports a charity case. And
Mm,
that I mean that in the broadest sense of the word. I mean that in women's sports investment at major corporations looking the same for the women's teams as it does for the men's teams. I need every single business that has a suite at the Viking Stadium to have a suite at the Lynx games. And because that level of investment is the only thing that will continue to help women's sports grow. And
mm-hmm,
we're seeing that. We are absolutely seeing major growth and investment in women's sports, but it's still so lagging and far behind where the men have been. And I think the biggest thing that is the barrier for this, that I don't have the solution for, but I think is a common thing, is that women's sports have been expected to prove their worth before folks will invest in it. Meanwhile, there's a new arena football league every other season that's popping out with gajillion dollars in investors. That's going to be the next arena football league that folds because none of
mm-hmm,
them are successful. And there have been 100 of them.
mm-hmm,
And so women have been held to such a higher standard in terms of risk management from a financial perspective on what people are willing to invest in. And I think that we're finally starting to break down some of those barriers because of things like increased media attention, because of things like big names stepping forward. This weekend is Flava Flav's big she women's sports weekend out in Las Vegas. Like, what? Like, who would have thought Public Enemy was going to be the torchbearer for women's sports in 2026? Not me, but I think that is absolutely what needs to change, is to continue to see that growth in women's sports. There's a Ally Bank is a great case study of the woman in charge of Ally Bank's corporate sponsorships. She's an absolute legend in the women's sports world. She basically said by 2030, 50% of our investments are going to be in men's sports and 50% of our investments are going to be in women's sports. Like,
wow.
across the board, no exceptions made. Like, that's what we're going to do. She accomplished it 3 years early.
Wow.
So they have already reached 50-50 status. And you see them everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I literally have communicated with her and been like, if you had a physical location, I would switch banks
Mm-hmm.
because that's how much I want to support you. And that's how much I want to give back to you because you've invested so much in women's sports. And that kind of, again, brand loyalty speaks so much to women's sports fans. We're so
Mm-hmm.
used to crumbs that when brands step up and invest in women's sports fans are psychotic about
Mm-hmm.
supporting those brands.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I think needs to change, is investors really need to realize, like, this isn't just some like cute new fad. Like, this is going nowhere but up. And the growth that we've seen even in the last 2.5 years has been insane. And to imagine what the current level of investment looks like now and what that's going to look like in 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
like I literally think that we cannot comprehend how much it's going to grow, because I think that that's how much of a rocket ship we are on. In terms of what do I want to see in terms of the fund and the bar and all of those things, like, what I really want more than anything is that people kind of throw away this old misnomer that women's sports belongs to a certain portion of the population. So as a queer woman, for example, like, when I first announced that we were opening this bar, everybody's like, oh, so it's a lesbian bar. And I was like, when did I say it was a lesbian? Like, never in any of my published material do I even say the word queer. Like, where did this become a lesbian bar?
Mm-hmm.
But we've really pigeonholed women's sports fans into these very, very narrow markets. And just because I'm a queer woman doesn't mean my bar is queer, or every other sports bar in Minnesota would be a straight man bar.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not. Well, it might be. But I think it's really expanding. Like, it's going to take a lot of work because it's so much built-in systemic, like, misogyny and all of these other things that have been built around women's sports, sexualization of women athletes. Like, can we stop, for the love of God? But it's going to change a lot of minds in terms of, like, no, these are like incredible athletes that are very strong and are at the top of their game and are, good role models for your young daughters and your young sons, which is the thing for me, is that changing this misnomer that it's only for queer women, it's only for X, Y, and Z, and really just broadening out this scope to say, like, do you like sports? Cool. Have you ever watched a women's basketball game? And not the one that you like say with the US team lost to the boys 10U team. Like, that never happened. Like, don't give me these old tropes of how bad women's sports are, because it's just not true anymore. It's just not true. And so that's what I really hope, is that women's sports are actually given the respect that they deserve. These athletes spend, if not, I ought to argue, more time and energy investing in their sports, because they have to work that much harder, because they're not making $250 million to ride the bench. So a lot, I mean, our PWHL players are earning their doctorates while they're, by the way, playing in a professional women's hockey league. Like, crazy. Imagine those kinds of things. But the thing that really does give me hope is that one of the key things for us in opening a bar of their own was to make sure that it was family friendly. Because I vividly remember the first time I saw women's sports on TV, like outside of the Olympics. And I was I was done with college. I was in my 20s, and the college women's softball World Series was on TV. And I was like, and now our bar is filled every night with families whose young boys and girls are sitting watching college softball on TV, and WNBA games and hockey games and all of these things. And that's their norm. And so if we're changing that dynamic so early for these kids, God willing, that acceptance and respect maintains as these fans continue to become fans of these sports and these athletes long after, they're at home. And I think we're already seeing that with just so much growth in the fan base. And the other thing that is silly to say, but because women's sports was so hard to watch before, it was hard to be a fan.
That's so true.
Because you didn't know where to look. You didn't know how to find it. And so the more mainstream women's sports become on TV, the easier it is for folks to become fans of the sport that they can actually watch. So put women's sports on TV, great things happen, investment happens, media, all of these case studies are proving themselves in a way that I think is going to mean just continued exponential growth for the industry.
I love it. Okay, I have a lightning round. I always fail at this. It's the fast part. Okay. One word, no thinking, no explaining. We're in and out in 90 seconds. I swear to God, this is going to happen. It never happens. Beer or bourbon?
Beer.
All right. Lynx or Aurora?
Oh, God.
I know, I'm a monster. I was
like, you are a terrible human. Lynx only because they've been around longer and I've been a fan longer.
Okay. Loudest night the bar has ever had. One word.
Lynx finals, which is one word.
I like it. I'll take it. Lynx finals. The one women's sport more people need to watch live, and just one women's sport.
Women's rugby.
Oh, all right.
There's a game on Sunday.
Okay.
Goes live,
are you guys going to show it? It'll go live.
We always show it.
As soon as we're done, my producer will put it together.
Yes.
Let's see. If you could put a single game on every screen in the country for one night, what's the game?
2017 Lynx Finals championship game.
Ooh, that's hot. In one sentence, and it has to be one sentence, fix women's sports media coverage forever. I know, I'm evil.
Give women the same money you give the men.
Boom. The thing you were most sure would fail, and it didn't.
Hiring family members.
Oh, that's
not my family members, but people that are related to each other.
That's a good one.
Everyone told me it wouldn't work.
All right. Well, I'm glad it did. All right. Last one. What does 11-year-old Jillian, the kid on the softball field, think of you right now?
She's probably thinks I'm really loud and talk a lot, but hopefully very proud.
I'm sure she is. So there it is. That's why I call it the lightning round, and it takes like 25 minutes every single time I do it. I've never once gotten it right. And I've never gotten out of this segment on time, but I've made peace with that. But you were better than most. people in that lightning round, and that's a high compliment. So Jillian, um, founder of a bar of their own, builder of the thing the rest of us might have said somebody should build. She got told the numbers didn't work and the timing was risky and the safe money was somewhere else. And she looked at all of that good advice and politely declined to follow it. There's now a room in Minneapolis where a dad can bring his daughter to watch her heroes on 12 screens at once, and nobody has to ask anybody to change the channel. That exists because one person refused to accept that it couldn't exist. So thank you for that, and for being exactly who you are, and for building proof that doing it your way is not the same as doing it wrong. And thank you, everybody, for listening to Don't Tell Me What to Do. If this episode moved you at all, send it to somebody who's sitting on an idea everybody has told them was bad business, a bad decision, just not the way to go. And tell them that Jillian did it anyway. We will see you next time. Thanks, Jillian.
Thanks so much.
I'm breaking all your rules. Yeah.